Okay. All glories to Mother Rytasha, all glories to the religion of love, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the Supreme Lord. O Lord God, please help us live out these teachings and be an example in the world. Jai. Okay, so we're starting from the bottom of page 38 in the PDF, The Path Made Straight, with commentary by Mother Rytasha. And as we traveled, we saw the world in all its cruelty, the degradation, war, and pestilence. And so she surprised us by saying, "Blessed are we who live in this dark age of quarrel and hypocrisy." And seeing our amazement, she explained, "Blessed are we, for in this age God gives himself to us in the simplest and easiest practice of all, the chanting of God's holy names." And so spoke the next step upon the path made straight, the chanting of the holy names of God. And she taught us, saying, "The Lord and his name are non-different. When you say the name of God, the Lord is actually present in his name." And seeing our confusion, said, "This is difficult to understand, because in the material world, the name of an object and the object itself are different. Just by saying the word water, we cannot quench our thirst. But the Lord's name is transcendental to material law, and by saying the name of God, the Lord being present in his name, we can actually associate with God himself." And she asked further, "What happens when we associate with someone? We become like them, do we not? If we associate with thieves, eventually we will steal. And if we associate with the Supreme Lord in his holy name, all the dirt of ignorance, all that is troublesome to the heart, is cleansed away, and our true spiritual self is manifest." And a man asked, "But which name of God? For you have taught that there is only one God, but that he has unlimited names." And she answered, "All the names of God are good, for all his names are God." And another asked, "Is one way of chanting God's name better than another?" And she answered again, "There are not any hard and fast rules for chanting, for it's not in the way of chanting, nor in the words of chanting, but the love in the chanting." And she begged us, "Take this gift and give it freely, as it has given freely unto you, and spread this message to every town and village." And one stood on the outskirts and heard this with amazement, and said, "Many masters have come and gone, and they too have spoken of this, but they have said it in secret, and kept it only among their initiates, and only after money was given." And she shook her head sadly and came back, for she had been leaving, and sat down again to tell this tale so that all present should understand, saying, "There was a master such as this, who had a young disciple, and after initiating him, gave him in secret the knowledge of the power of the chanting of God's holy names, saying, 'In this practice is the easiest way of liberation from material suffering, the simplest way to come again to God.' But he forbade him to speak of this, saying, 'Tell no one what you have learned here.' But no sooner had the young disciple left the presence of his spiritual master, he immediately began to chant the Lord's names aloud, telling everyone he met the secret power in the chanting of the holy name of God. And when it came to the attention of the spiritual master, he called his young disciple to him, and angrily asked, 'How have you disobeyed the direct order of your spiritual master?' And the young disciple fell at the feet of his master in floods of tears, for his master was most dear to him, and cried, 'My master, please forgive me. But when I knew the chanting of the holy names of God could so easily give liberation, and I saw how the people suffered, I said to myself, even if I must endure the flames of hell eternally, still must I give this gift to all." And the Master saw deep into the heart of the disciple, and lifting him up, embraced him, and with tears in his eyes said, "God bless you, for you are the real spiritual master." All right, now let's hear Mother Rytasha's commentary. "And as we traveled, we saw the world in all its cruelty, the degradation, war, and pestilence. And so she surprised us by saying, 'Blessed are we who live in this dark age of quarrel and hypocrisy.' And seeing our amazement, she explained, 'This is a very degraded age. We think we are advanced because we have some marvelous technologies. But technological advancement is not the criteria for advancement. It is the moral, ethical, and spiritual advancement that are the hallmark that we should look to. But because the age is so degraded, and because God is so merciful, and because He understands that in this age we are short-lived, we are less intelligent, and we are less able to perform the spiritual austerities of other ages, God, in His mercy, gives us the simplest practice by which we may become purified. So we say, even though this is a very degraded time to live in, it is still glorious because we have the simplest practice for God realization. Blessed are we, for in this age God gives Himself to us in the simplest and easiest practice of all, the chanting of God's holy names." So, hearing is the first step. Then in the doing. And what we've heard was that in this age, that we relink to the spiritual, the way is the simplest, to chant the holy name of God. And so spoke so spoke the next step upon the path made straight, the chanting of the holy names of God. And she taught us, saying, "The Lord and His name are non-different. When you say the name of God, the Lord is actually present in His name." And seeing our confusion, this is difficult to understand, because in the material world, the name of an object and the object itself are different. Just by saying the word water, we cannot quench our thirst. And my own comment, try it. Mother Rytasha would say, you can just say water, 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 but it's not going to quench your thirst. But the Lord's name is transcendental to material law, and by saying the name of God, the Lord being present in His name, we can actually associate with God Himself. And she asked further, what happens when we associate with someone? We become like them, do we not? If we associate with thieves, eventually we will steal. And if we associate with the Supreme Lord in His holy name, all the dirt of ignorance, all that is troublesome to the heart, is cleansed away, and our true spiritual self is manifest. Here you have everything you need. God is so merciful, all you have to do is call His name. You can say it, sing it, chant it, pray it, silently or out loud, as time and circumstance dictate, and we are promised purification and self-realization. And a man asked, "But which name of God? For you have taught that there is only one God, but that He has unlimited names." And she answered, "All the names of God are good, for all His names are God." This is very crucial. Before the religion of love, different religions had their name of God according to language and locality. And in an unloving way, they denied names of other languages and localities, of other religions. Now, this error is being corrected by God, so that all the names of God are good. For it is not a particular name we call, but God we call. And God, Here's the intention in our practice. God knows the heart. And another asked, is one way of chanting God's name better than another? Again, people will correct you and tell you only my way is the right way. And she answered again, there are not any hard and fast rules for chanting, for it's not in the way of chanting nor in the words of chanting, but the love in the chanting that God appreciates. And she begged us, oh, I think the PDF is missing a couple words. It's not in the way of chanting, but the love in the chanting that God appreciates. Interesting. Oh, my bad. The PDF is missing a couple words. Oopsie doodles. I better correct that in the future. We're not perfect. We're not the best editors in working these computer programs. My apologies. Let's see. So it's the love in the chanting that God appreciates. And she begged us, take this gift and give it freely, as it is given freely unto you, and spread this message to every town and village. This is important. Do not make a business out of what God has given you, or you will destroy the potency of it. So we don't charge for this practice of God's name. We don't charge for spiritual knowledge. God has given this freely into the world, and we too give it freely. For if we try to exploit it for our own selfishness, it will have no potency. So it is in the giving that we receive, and the best way to give it is to be it, to be doing it, and to be imbued with it through and through. And one who stood on the outskirts and heard this with amazement said, many masters have come and gone, and they too have spoken of this. Again, nothing is new. We're not concerned with the new. We're concerned with the true. And as we have a goal to be again with God, we are concerned with how this can be achieved. And anything that is beneficial for this, we keep. And if it's not beneficial, we reject. And when you give it and share the knowledge, by your very being, by your word, your deeds, you also receive. If you want to climb to the top of a mountain, but you're not very strong, and I help you get to the top, who will be there? Both of us. But they have said it in secret, and kept it only among their initiates, and only after money was given. This is exploiting the spiritual and dragging it into the material. God wants everyone to hear this. And if you ask money of people, you limit the people who can hear it. There are no secrets. They only have secrets so they can sell it. They only make a secret out of something that is given. You will find it in all the scriptures. God's love is so great and so merciful. He wants us to get free of our suffering. So he gives it and gives it and gives it, and wants us to do the same. And she shook her head sadly and came back, for she had been leaving, and sat down again to tell this tale, so that all present should understand, saying, there was a master such as this, who had a young disciple, and after initiating him gave him in secret the knowledge of the power of the chanting of God's holy name, saying, in this practice is the easiest way of liberation from material suffering, the simplest way to come again to God. But he forbade him to speak of this, saying, tell no one what you have learned here. But no sooner had the young disciple left the presence of his spiritual master, he immediately began to chant the Lord's names aloud, and telling everyone he met the secret power in the chanting of the holy name of God. And when it came to the attention of the spiritual master, he called his young disciple to him and angrily asked, how have you disobeyed the direct order of your spiritual master? And the young disciple fell at the feet of his master in floods of tears, for his master was most dear to him, and cried, "My master, please forgive me, but when I knew the chanting of the holy names of God could so easily give liberation." Here it's important that we say names, plural. Each locality, each religion given by God will have a different name of God, and they're all good. And I saw how the people suffer. I said to myself, even if I must endure the flames of hell eternally, still must I give this gift to all. And the Master saw deep into the heart of the disciple, and lifting him up, embraced him, and with tears in his eyes said, "God bless you, for you are the real spiritual master." So this is a description of a real devotee of God. The devotee of God receives the message of God, obeys the message of God, and then gives it out to everyone and anyone. So no secrets, no money for what God has given. God wants everyone to have this beautiful message, and hearing it, our only duty is to try to do it. All right, let's read some more. And in our travels we came to the sea, and walked along the shore at sunset, and one of the disciples asked of her, "Speak to us of prayer, for we know it as a step upon the path." And she laughed aloud, saying, "It is said, one prays better in hell than in heaven." Most people remember God only when troubles come. For who remembers God when life is sweet? And what are their prayers but the prayers of beggars? For they wish to make God their order supplier, demanding of him, "Give me this and give me that." They are like the so-called friend one only sees when he is in trouble and comes to borrow money. But the devotee of God is different, and so different are his prayers. For the devotee knows who he is. He knows that he is not man nor woman, American nor Indian, Hindu nor Muslim, Christian nor Jew, but that he is eternally spirit soul, the servant, the beloved lover of God, and prays therefore, "O my Lord, how may I serve you?" That is his prayer and his life. And as she spoke, she saw a rich man who had many servants of his own had joined us, and understood that what she said displeased him, and so said, "Most people in this world do not wish to be a servant. They live in the illusion that they can be masters. And though everyone is always serving something, whether it is the government, family, or even their own stomachs, still they persist in the idea they can lord it over others. In truth, they wish to be God, not to serve God. This is the original sin which brings man to the world, and it is this that keeps him in the world." And the same devotee asked, "How often shall a man pray?" And she answered, "Establish regular prayer, and then as you progress along the path, your days and nights will fill with prayer, until you pray unceasingly, never for one moment forgetting God." And remembering God, she counted as a step upon the path. And as we listened, night came quickly, and the trees lay black against the orange sky, as she told us of an ancient queen who used to pray, "My dear Lord, always keep putting me into difficulty so that I may never forget you even for a single moment." Okay, let me read the commentary for this section on prayer. And bear with me. I know I repeat these messages a lot, but repeating the message of God is not a fallacy. It's a good thing. Oh, sorry about the noise. We're giving class inside of our camper right now, and that's the inverter. I had the inverter off thinking the battery was fully charged on the laptop, but the battery laptop failed. It'll pass in a moment. And in our travels we came to the sea and walked along the shore at sunset. And one of the disciples asked of her, "Speak to us of prayer, for we know it as a step upon the path." And she laughed aloud, saying, "It is said, one prays better in hell than in heaven." Most people remember God only when troubles come, for who remembers God when life is sweet? And what are their prayers but the prayers of beggars? For they wish to make God their order supplier, demanding of him, "Give me this and give me that." They are like the so-called friend one only sees when he is in trouble and comes to borrow money. But the devotee of God is different, and so different are his prayers. For the devotee knows who he is. He knows that he is not man nor woman, American nor Indian, Hindu nor Muslim, Christian nor Jew, but that he is eternally spirit soul, the servant, the beloved lover of God, and prays therefore, "O my Lord, how may I serve you?" That is his prayer in his life. Simple. What is the problem? God is giving us an easy way out of our suffering. So take it. And don't be selfish. People are suffering like anything. They are trapped in material bodies that give a little pleasure, and then will turn against them. And they will have to face old age, death, disease. So free yourself, and by freeing others, you also free yourself. And as she spoke, she saw a rich man who had many servants of his own had joined us, and understood that what she said displeased him, and so said, "Most people in this world do not wish to be a servant. They live in the illusion that they can be masters, and though everyone is always serving something, whether it is the government, family, or even their own stomachs, still they will persist in the idea they can lord it over others. In truth, they wish to be God, not to serve God." Sometimes the words in scriptures may give a wrong impression. We serve, and we like to be servants in the spiritual platform because we serve out of love, not out of bondage. So it is a joyful experience, and which gives great pleasure, both to the one who has served, God, and to the one who is serving. In fact, we could change the word serve to pleasing, to make it more understandable. When we love someone, we want to please them. And when we please the one we love, we also get great pleasure. This is the original sin which brings man into the world, and it is this that keeps him in the world. Yes, we don't want to serve God, we want to be God. And everyone around us should serve us, do what we want them to do. And you will hear in conversation often, "Oh, she should do this, he should do that," that we are trying to control others. And the same devotee asked, "How often shall a man pray?" And she answered, "Establish regular prayer." So the prayer of the devotee is a prayer of wanting nothing of this material world, wanting only God, and only to please God by doing service for him. And of course, the great thing to understand is that God also is wanting to please us and serve us. There's a story. A little child went to heaven, and the angel took him into what looked like a big warehouse, and there were all kinds of big boxes, beautifully wrapped with pretty ribbons. And the child asked the angel, "What are all these boxes?" And the angel said, "These are the gifts God wants to give, but nobody's asked for them." So it's very important. Regular prayer. And what is prayer for a devotee? It's inherent in the chanting. And the prayer is not for anything in this material world, but for God himself, and to please God by serving him. Regular is an important word also, that it's done daily, at a specific time, and that is something that is done regularly. And then as you progress along the path, your days and nights will fill with prayer until you pray unceasingly, never for one moment forgetting God. So you begin where you are, and you take some time every day to pray for God and for service to God by chanting the holy name of God. And this practice purifies you, so that the love for God that is inherent in each of us is manifest, and in love, the desire to serve the beloved. And the goal is that we never for one moment forget God, but start where you are, a little each day, and slowly increase. And eventually, as you are purified and you come to a state of love, you also come to a state of great ecstatic pleasure, so that you don't want to be out of the association with God for a single moment. And remembering God, she counted as a step upon the path. And as we listened, night came quickly, and the trees lay black against the orange sky, as she told us of an ancient queen who used to pray, "My dear Lord, always keep putting me into difficulties so that I may never forget you, even for a single moment." Well, we don't really want to be in difficulties, but it is true. The human nature usually thinks of God when we want God to get us out of our difficulties. But an attitude of gratitude is a very nice way to live. Seeing all around us the many, many gifts of God that are showered upon us in many ways. People say miracles were for ancient times, and that we don't see any miracles today. But miracles are all around us. So be grateful for the everyday miracles, and remember them as a gift of God, and in this way remember God. Okay, I read a little bit more. And as it was late and night upon us, we boarded a boat. But when we had gone out but half an hour, a storm came up, and fierce winds churned the waters, and the boat pitched about upon the black waves. And some of the disciples grew frightened. And she spoke, soothing them, and then said, "Many will come to spiritual life, and some in difficult times will want to go away. But spiritual life is the only boat by which a man may cross over the ocean of material sorrows. Even if the boat is sometimes rocky, do not leave the boat and go again into those dangerous waters." And the storm which had come upon us so suddenly, just as suddenly died down. And she looked into the calm water, saying, "After the fisherman has mercifully worked to free the fish and put him back in the water, it is a foolish fish indeed who jumps back into the net." Okay, I'll read the commentary on this one paragraph, and then we can stop. And as it was late at night upon us, we boarded a boat. But when we had gone out but half an hour, a storm came up, and fierce winds churned the waters, and the boat pitched about upon the black waves. People sometimes think, "I'm now in spiritual life, and everything will be peaceful, and everything will go the way I want it to go." But the truth is, the minute we enter spiritual life, we enter into a series of tests that are there to make us grow and to purify us. And we can see with Jesus that after he was baptized and he was about to start his mission, who pops up? The devil. So that is not a bad thing. It's not a comfortable thing, but it's not a bad thing. And some of the disciples grew frightened, and she spoke, soothing them, and then said, "Many will come to spiritual life, and some in difficult times will want to go away. But spiritual life is the only boat by which a man may cross over the ocean of material sorrows. Even if the boat is sometimes rocky, do not leave the boat and go again into those dangerous waters." We see this happens. People come to spiritual life and they are tested. And they think, oh, spiritual life is not the way I thought it would be. All angels and harps and fluffy clouds and rainbows. But spiritual life is for warriors and for serious people that at the first upset don't run away. So these storms which come up are meant only for your own good. So don't be a coward and run away, but use them to your advantage. And then she told me to throw in the donkey story of how to deal with the tests that come upon us, that they are meant only to elevate us, not to drive us away, because spiritual life is the only way you can actually be successful in God. Okay, so when I was dictating comments by Mother Rytasha, she did a side note, said, you throw this in there. So I went through all my old notes and I figured out what story she was talking about. And here's my notes from a class I had with Mother Rytasha, November 17, 2009, at our center in Bodhigata, Bangladesh. God is sending to his devotees by his grace, but it doesn't always seem too graceful to us. For a devotee to see where is God in this, it's one of two things. One, something is taken away so something better can come. Or two, it's taken away to learn a lesson. If you can learn to think in this way, for a devotee, there are no problems, only experiences. Some things happen in this world, but the devotee is under the direct arm of God, not karmic law. It's all for our good. The sugar or the stick for the donkey. Sometimes a stubborn donkey needs the dangling of the sweet carrot in front to move forward. Sometimes it needs the whack of a stick. Many things will come to stop us in our service. A great devotee is not one seeing visions and being in bliss, but one in service. And the storm which had come upon us so suddenly, just as suddenly died down, and she looked into the calm water, saying, after the fisherman has mercifully worked to free the fish and put him back in the water, it is a foolish fish indeed who jumps back into the net. So the spiritual master is doing everything to rescue the bewildered person from the pains and pangs of material life. And once somebody finds someone who is willing to do that, is foolish to throw that away because it's not always comfortable. Okay. Let me pause the recording here. Okay. Does anyone have any questions related to the class? The inverter has a question. Sorry. Oh yeah, sorry, I can't hear. My apologies. This is the situation. There are no problems, only experiences, we just read, right? So, it has a 30-second setting. It'll go off in a moment. Apologies. Okay, what were you saying?
I said your camera is off.
My camera's off.
Yeah.
I can see it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Just close your Discord and come back on again. It'll probably work.
Okay.
But you're also my wife. You know what I look like, so no problem.
No, just in case if you wanted to record, that's fine.
Oh, thanks. Oh, so sorry, Brother Meat. What was your question?
I don't know. I was thinking I'm trying to form it in my head. I'm trying to word it, so I'm trying to think it through. Give me a second.
Okay. I know that experience where there's something tickling in your mind you want to ask, but like you don't have the words to formulate it. Oh, I had that all the time when I was around Mother Rytasha. Oh my goodness.
Okay, this. Oh yeah, go ahead first.
You go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, you mentioned how sometimes God gives us hardships to bring us closer to Him, or maybe it's like a test.
Yes.
Sometimes these tests, I understand if it's like natural disasters or just stuff going on in the world or something random happens to you. But what about tests when it comes to other people? Like, say somebody is doing something to you and you have kind of a negative experience with the people around you. How do you react to situations like that?
Okay. Good question. Is your question more or less these crazy people that you bump into in your life or have to deal with, are they also tests given by God? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, and then why would God give us those tests?
Good question. Well, there's a nice story related to this. So, there was this holy man who was a hermit living in a cave, and the local village down the hill knew of him and revered him as a holy man, and they would often bring offerings at the entrance of his cave. But he always stayed in silence and in seclusion and never went out among the people. And in the holy man's own opinion, he was a very advanced, saintly person. Well, it just so happened that by the grace of God, this holy man, this sadhu, and this man in the cave eventually comes down into the town village. And he walks among the people in the square, and someone accidentally bumps into him. And the holy man, he goes, "Hey, watch where you're going!" And he gets so angry at the guy. And revealed that, he wasn't as saintly as he thought he was. You see, when we're just by ourselves and no one's around us, we may have the false impression that we're really doing good and advancing in spiritual life. But God will send unto us those that will test and try us and reveal unto us what is hidden within ourselves. So perhaps this saintly person thought he had no anger in him. But when he bumps into this guy in the village, boy, did that anger come up, right? She was actually really angry. So, and remember, these feelings that we have, we think they're just in that moment from that current situation. Like, this guy made me angry because of his clumsiness, because of his disrespect, because of him not looking where he's going, blah, blah, blah. Blame, blame, blame other people for how we are feeling. That's what the mind does. That's our habit. We blame outside of ourselves for what is actually inside of us. So God will send people unto us to push our buttons so that we can see, where am I really at? Am I really free from anger and free from fear, free from anxiety and illusion? Or do I still have some more things to work on? And these things that come up are actually an opportunity. They're actually a blessing. Because if you really were fully purified, then that person bumping into you, or that crazy person you have to deal with, or that crazy relative that's annoying, they wouldn't bother you if you were really so advanced or really purified in heart and mind. They wouldn't shake you one bit. Now, of course, it's not pleasant to be around such disturbing folks or situations, obviously. And if someone is a very negative or antagonistic person to your spiritual life, then it would be wise not to associate with certain people if you can avoid it, obviously. You don't have to force yourself to be in a toxic environment thinking that, but if I'm in a very tough situation, I'm going to force myself to purify and take it easy, But it's true. God will send people to test and try us, and they're like a mirror that show to us what is inside of us. And another example is that story of the enlightened ones, actually, story of the Buddha, where he was traveling and he came across this village where the villagers mistook him for the wrong person. And they started to rebuke and revile him and say all these awful things and treat him really bad. And the Buddha just humbly stayed and patiently waited till they were finished with all of their hateful remarks. And then when they were done, he just calmly said, would you please excuse me? I'm expected off in this far-off village, but I promise I will come back in 1 week's time, and then we can continue this conversation, if you don't mind." And the people, they realized he wasn't the guy they thought he was, and they apologized profusely, and were surprised when they asked, "Hey, how come you didn't get angry and upset with all the terrible things we said to you and did?" And the Buddha says, "Well, I'm sorry I disappointed you, but I don't have any anger left to give you." And then the message is, he was like a cool as water, putting out the fire of our own anger. So yes, even though he was around all these disturbing, crazy people, nothing bothered him. And that's kind of the test. So God is going to test and try us on the path, and it's not to punish us, but it's all meant to help us. Everything God sends unto his devotee is for the benefit of his devotee, even the hardships. So remember, everybody is like a mirror unto us. So that is why in the peace process, which we're going to get to later on, it's a process in which we go into our minds and to purify all the negative thoughts and feelings within us by replacing them with good, true thoughts. Well, in that peace process, towards the end, you're meant to find one good, true, loving thought about the person that brought up these feelings, and then one good, true thought about yourself. So the reason being is, it's not that that person made us angry or made us sad or made us upset. Now, of course, we don't condone the negative or mean things that people do. Of course not. No, we're not talking about that. We're not talking about what they did is right or wrong. That's a different topic. What we're discussing is what is going on inside of us. That's what's important. And the devotee who is looking in every situation how God is sending will not jump to quick conclusions and curse God. It's like, "Oh, why I'm in this problem? Oh, why you do this to me?" Blah, blah, blah. He's not going to do that. In practice and time, the devotee realizes that God is in everything for the devotee of God on the path made straight, including all the troubles and hardships and difficulties. Which, remember, it also says in the books that for one who has turned away from God, the trials of life are a punishment. But for one who is turned towards God, the trials of life are a test, and when passing, bring us closer to God. And in the peace process, when we get these negative feelings coming up, and we're going through our minds to purify all that and chant God's name by his mercy to help these things not come back again. Again, that's all so that we can be purified. I mean, what is the habit that we have in society, especially for boys, for men? When bad things come up, what do we say? Just suck it up. Just put that down. Don't feel the feeling, right? Well, devotees don't do that. We don't just suck it up or sweep it under the carpet. No, we want to deal with it right then and there while it's fresh. So if someone disturbs you or is problematic or is very upsetting to you, and now you're starting to feel all these negative feelings and thoughts, remember, they are that test, and they're showing to you where you really are. And it's actually a really good benchmark every single time these things happen. You can realize, how upset was I? Or no, I'm not so upset. I've been purifying more and more. I've been working on myself. Because remember, all our emotions, all our thoughts and feelings, they come from inside. They're not from outside. Nobody can put anger into you. Nobody can put sorrow into you, grief into you. Nobody can put shame into you. Although people will try to shame you, people will try to make you feel guilty, people will say all sorts of nasty things, surely. But these emotions are ours, and they've been there for a long time. Not just this lifetime. We're carrying so much baggage with us, lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. And all of this needs to be purified. But if we're just in the cave by ourselves, we might falsely think, oh, I'm doing so good. So remember, so other people, they are a blessing, actually. And so the devotee, inside themselves will thank that person for helping show them what was really inside all along that I couldn't have seen by myself. Like that saint who was in the cave, he never would have known how much anger he would have had inside if he hadn't, bumped into that guy. So that's kind of what it's all about. Does that answer your question, brother?
Yeah, that makes me think about a few stories that are kind of similar to the guy in the cave.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Well, if it's relevant, would you like to share one?
Yeah, this was one, I was getting some coffee early in the morning, and I came back, parked my car, and this guy opened the door of my car when I was parked, and I live in a pretty bad area, so I thought I was getting robbed.
Yeah.
So I yelled at the guy. I was like, get out of here, right? I was basically just, I was like, what are you doing? And it was kind of like out of reaction. I was just yelling at him to leave, right? And so then he was like, oh, sorry, I thought this was my Uber. And then like a minute later, a different car pulls up and he gets into that one, and I felt really bad. I was like, oh, shit.
Oh.
Yeah. But that was one situation where, looking back at it, I could have probably just asked him, like, hey, what's going on? Instead of yelling at him immediately. But my mind kind of just went to safety first, which I think that it is good, but I could have been a bit more considerate.
Well, you are full of so much love in your heart, brother, so that's why you're thinking that way. But I agree with you. I would have done the same thing, I think even Mother Rytasha would have done the same thing. You're right. If you're in a bad neighborhood, yeah, that reaction was one of safety, because you got to protect body and soul and whatnot. And yeah, you do live in a crazy area, so but no.
And a short other one might be irrelevant is sometimes we don't think about some other person's their experience and the reason why they're acting a certain way. They might be a bad person to us, and all their actions might actually be negative. But then you get some context as to why they're doing that or why they kind of act that way, and makes you kind of appreciate them and understand why they're doing that.
That's very true. Knowledge can help us have empathy. I like this example. If you're on the bus, public bus, and you see this guy who's drunk and rowdy and making a scene of himself, right? And depending on whatever is in the context of every individual's mind, they're all going to have a different experience. The single mother with her little child is going to be fearful and be afraid of this guy and see him as a threat and danger, and she'll not think very positive of that guy, Whereas like some other individuals may be thinking, oh, what a jerk, get off this bus, like what's your problem, it's messed up. Everyone's going to be thinking their own thing. So however everybody how they're thinking is going to create their own experience within themselves. And let's say there's somebody on the bus who actually knows that guy and knows that maybe his wife and kids just died in a car crash a week ago, and he's just on a downward spiral bender of sorrow and lament. And that guy who sees the rowdy drunk making a scene, he's not getting angry, he's not getting afraid, he's not getting pissed off. He's just full of compassion. He's just sorry for the guy. He's just like, oh, poor guy. Look at, he's a mess now, poor dude. So our thoughts create our experiences. They're not outside of us. Yeah, the outside thing does affect the inside, that's for sure. But the inside also affects the outside in everything in our life. So, my love, did you have a question as well?
Yes. I have a really good friend, and you know her, and she's in other country. I don't want to mention which country though.
Sure.
And we were talking about um, chanting the holy names and how it's beneficial for our soul and spiritual life. She asked me that, well, because of my obligation, or by the society that put us in the category that we have to be this religion or that religion. I used to the only holy names in the scripture of the scripture that uh, I'm practicing, or my parents practicing, and but my voice is coming back to myself, a little distracted for me. Sorry. So she said that I'm listening to different mantras, that there's a holy names in it, and I really enjoyed it. But if I want to fix on one uh, holy name and chant it regularly, I prefer to chant this mantra instead of the other name that is coming from that religion. But it give me feeling a little guilty, or I feel like I shouldn't chant those names because I raised by this religion and I have to stick in this religion and the principles. So she was confused. She said, I like the other mantras more, touch my heart more, but I feel like my guilt, commit sin if I chant different names of God from uh, different religion, instead of the religion is passed by generation to generation to me. So she said, what should I do? And I said, well, I didn't have any answer in that moment, and I didn't want to mislead her too. So now it came to my mind asking you, which is the class is related to the chanting the holy names.
Sure. Well, a lot of things in there. One is that you said your friend is feeling some connection with a particular mantra of names of God, or a particular string of names of God. Well, that's good. The idea is we want to build a relationship with God. So I once asked Mother Rytasha, because at the time I was just chanting all names of God all over the place, because I saw all names of God are good. So, and I asked if that was okay. And she said to me, if you're trying to dig a well with a spoon, are you going to dig a little here, dig a little here, dig a little there? No, you find one spot and you dig deep and you keep digging. So throughout the day, of course, to remember, chant, and hear different names of God from different backgrounds, different scriptures is wonderful. It's wonderful, Variety is the spice of life. But for our regular practice, what we do daily, our daily sadhana, our regular chanting that we set our time for every day, it's wiser to pick a particular name of God or a particular mantra of names of God that we are most connected with, because we're trying to reawaken our lost relationship with God. So that's fine. So whatever she feels the most connection to, as long as it's a valid name of God from the scriptures, that's wonderful. I would say stick with that. The second thing is she's feeling guilt and shame because of the expectations of family, people, society all around her, right? Well, two things there. Uh-oh. There goes the inverter again. Sorry, guys. So, one thing is feeling guilt, feeling shame, any of these negative feelings. Again, those are something that's inside of us, as we just mentioned. And these are things that need to be purified. We need to let go of these painful thoughts and feelings. And that is through the peace process, which we'll get to later in the Peace Book in the Religion of Love. Now, when we are children, we grow up learning to fulfill the desires of others. do what my parents ask, do what my teachers ask, do what my leader of my country's asked. So we're not trained to learn our own desires, just to fulfill the desires of others. And when we grow up, people don't even know what they actually want in life. All they think is what they were told by others. Okay, I guess get a degree, get a job, get a family, get a house, make a lot of money. I guess that's the default, right? Or do things in a specific way according to your family society, right? This is some of the nonsense conditioning of this material world. And there is no force. There is no have to. There is no you should do this. Everything God has given us, His message, is a choice. And we choose out of love to obey and follow the commandments and injunctions of the Scriptures. So it's nothing wrong to follow your heart and practice any style of religion that you feel called to chant any name of God that you feel connection to. Do not worry about the opinions of man and society, because those are all ephemeral, temporary things. They change, like this and that. I know the country you're speaking of, and I know there are some laws that you're not allowed to convert, or you're not allowed to change your religion, nonsense like that. This is just the worldly, political, dark, demonic ways of man, in illusion, consciousness, and in ignorance. So she doesn't have to tell anybody. That's the thing. She's telling you because in confidence you're a dear friend to her who's sharing the message of God with her. But that doesn't mean she has to go tell everybody, oh, I'm chanting this, or I'm practicing this, I'm changing to this, For her own safety, she's probably wise not to where she is. But inside herself, she can chant whatever she wants. And who is going to know? Unless she's chanting out loud, where others can hear. But usually, most devotees, when they do their regular practice of chanting, they chant very, very softly. Just enough so that they can hear it. This is called japa, or zikr. When you're chanting on your beads, or without beads, or just saying by a timer. Usually, it's just loud enough so that just your ears can pick it up, and not people around you, anyways. So no one even has to know, really, and nobody needs to know. It's not for them. It's for you. It's you and your relationship with God. It's her and her relationship with God. Everyone has a unique, loving relationship with God. And you can love God however you desire to love God. God is experience and the taste you most desire. So, no problem in chanting any name of God. The problem is of ignorant people in society. That's the problem. And that's their problem they have to deal with. That's their ignorance that they have to purify. God willing, they have the desire to purify. Most do not, unfortunately. So for her safety, of course, if she's in a crazy country with crazy man-made ignorant laws, with crazy interpretations of the Scriptures that say it has to be this way, only this way, or else you go to hell, or you'll be beheaded, or nonsense like that. But this is man's doing. That's not God's doing. You don't have to practice, chant, pray in a specific way, or else. These crazy ultimatums. No. God gives His message again and again and again, and the injunction of God is to pray unto Him, to chant His names, to live in a life of loving, surrendered service to please God. How you pray, how you chant, how you serve and please, according to time and circumstance and to the desires of your own heart. So, tell your friend if she's feeling guilt and shame, do the peace process. Purify that guilt and shame so she'll be free from guilt, free from shame, free from anger, pains, fears, and just love God with all her heart. And if she's worried about the backlash by the crazy governments and crazy people, then just keep it to herself. In fact, Mother Rytasha said, better you pray in the closet than praying aloud and make a big show of religion. Honestly, so. Remember, it's an internal process. You don't have to make a show of it. It's just you and God. So Hope that helps. All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And about run out of time, so I guess we'll close there. Thank you all for coming. Apologies for the noises and disturbances. It's all a test. So all you hearing this YouTube video or hearing the recording and saying, "Oh God, that terrible audio," is a test for you too. So, all glories to Mother Rytasha, all glories to Religion of Love, all glories to the assembled devotees. Jai. Oh, and Jai just also means Amen. It's just, it's all the same.